Welcome, everyone, to today's webcast, Connect with Customers in the Digital Era, presented by Moderator and supported by Demandforce. I'm Tschanen Brandyberry, Managing Editor of Moderator magazine, and I will be your moderator during today's webcast. As a shop owner, manager, or service advisor, you communicate on a regular basis with your current customers and work to draw in new clients. There are ways you can stay connected and reach new customers without adding more to your plate. And that's why we're all here today. Chris Brubaker, a small business marketing expert and director of marketing at Demandforce, is going to share with you a practical guide on communicating with customers online and increasing revenue and customer satisfaction while saving money. Chris has spent nearly 15 years in customer acquisition and online marketing for such firms as YouSendIt, Merchant Circle, and Siemens. He focuses heavily on modern marketing techniques and tries to answer questions such as how do I maximize the value of a visit to my website, or what channels are the most cost-effective means of customer acquisition. Now that you know a little bit about Chris and what to expect in today's webinar, let's get started. Chris, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Shannon, and many thanks to Moderator for having me on today. Looking forward to spending the next hour talking about communications. So let's just jump right in. So here's our agenda today. Why communications? Why is this important? Research, we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the latest research so that you can understand what your audience wants in terms of the best way to communicate with them. And then some basics. Once you understand why all of this is important, what you need to do to effectively communicate with your customers and run your shops. But before we get started, let's go to a poll question.
All right. Well, to our attendees, we want to kick things off here with this very first poll question. We wanted to know if you currently use email or text messages in your shop's marketing plan. There are 4 options: email only, text messages only, both email and text messages, or neither. What you do is just click that little round button and let us know, and then submit answer. Let us know what you currently use, if it's email, texting, both, or neither. Now that you've had just a little bit to answer, let's see. All right, it looks like about half of you use email only, just at 48.6%, followed by 27% with neither, and then another good percentage, 21%, with both. So, Chris, now that we know what our attendees currently are using, can you shed some light on what their customers utilize and where they should be focusing their efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are interesting. I have to, frankly, I think that's probably higher than I was maybe expecting, especially adding the first and third answers, email and both email and text. That's great. That means almost 3/4 of everyone is regularly communicating with their customers. So that's fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about why communications. And just wait for the slide to get up there. Okay. So these are the main things, and I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on each one of these. So let's just jump right in. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so I don't know if you guys remember from high school math class, but there's something called order of operations, and this was how you work on math problems. And you start with parentheses, and you work your way over to the right there to addition and subtraction. And I'm basically saying that marketing is the same way. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they start with the addition and subtraction. And for marketing, what that means is paid advertising. They buy a Yellow Page ad, they maybe do some Google advertising, or they go to Groupon or Living Social for the daily deal sites, because it's all about how to get people in the door as fast as possible. What I'm telling you is that communication is basically the parentheses. It's the thing you should do first. You should have a plan in place for communicating with your customers before you start paying money to drive customers in. And the reason for that is fairly simple. You will get more money out of the money that you do spend on acquisition if you have a communications plan in place ahead of time. Then there's the retention versus acquisition. I'm not sure if everyone's heard the phrase, but it's 7 times cheaper to keep a customer than find a new one. Depending on the industry, that can be 5 times, it can be 10, 20 times, but it's always cheaper to keep someone than it is to find them, get them into your shop, and convince them to buy something. And that's where communications come in. Communication is a retention tool. It's a way to get people that are already in your database back into the shop. And it's, again, more cost effective. Now, this is an interesting one, and this is something we've learned at Demandforce. We have over 20,000 customers like you guys that use our service. And every time we turn on a new customer, we get to see how big their database is because we're the ones helping them market to the database. So when we look at the amount of customers in a database total, and then we look at the amount of active customers, and that could be defined as someone that's been in the shop in the last 6 months or in the last year, they almost always have a lot more people in the database than they have that are active customers. And having a communications program that reaches everyone in the database is an incredibly effective way to increase your business. And one of the things that we see is when people turn our system on and start communicating, that they get an immediate boost in business. And so one of the things that you should be measuring in your business is looking at how many people do I have in my database and how many people are actually active. And then the last thing here is automated versus manual. Automated communications, we feel obviously as a purveyor of automated marketing solutions, is the way to go. It saves you time. It happens automatically. But it is possible to do it manual. You just have to have the process in place, the people assigned to do the job, and you have to stay on top of it. We think that it's cost effective to do it in an automated way, but I don't want you guys to think that the only reason I'm here today is to sell our service. I'm here to talk about the importance of communications, and whether you do it automated or manual, it is possible to do it effectively, and we encourage you to do so. So let's take a little bit of time to look at some of the latest research that we're seeing. I don't think it comes as any surprise that email usage is very high. You see the headline up there, everyone is on email, everyone has a cell phone. Here are the actual statistics. So 92% of people use email. It is still the #1 activity on the internet. Compare it to search down there, you'll see it's equal, and it's still bigger than social media. And then if you basically pull out the kids, the number jumps to 94%. So that is virtually everyone that is coming into your shop uses email. I don't think that comes as a surprise. But it's also starting to become very much true on cell phones too. Slightly lower in total amount of cell phones, but 45% have a smartphone. But more interesting than that is 66% of that 45%, so 66% of people that have a smartphone, 66% of 18 to 29-year-olds have smartphones, and 68% of high-income people have smartphones. And smartphones are great, obviously, because while every phone gets text messages, it's a lot easier to check email on smartphones too. So your future customers, younger people, and your affluent customers are all disproportionately on smartphones. And we're also seeing a strong growth in tablets, and it's already reached 25%. And considering Apple kind of started this a few years ago with the iPad, I think we're at 3 years now, to already have a quarter of the adult population in the U.S. Owning a tablet, that says something about where we're headed as a society. I don't think, like I said, I don't think we're surprising anyone with this information. Everyone's on email. Most everyone has a cell phone. But what's the ramifications of that? Well, the fact of the matter is email is still growing. We're at 2.9 billion email accounts, and in 2 years it's projected to be at 3.8 billion. Now, this is worldwide. I didn't find the U.S. stats. So a lot of this will be, outside the country, but it is still growing. But here's the more interesting statistic is how many people check their email every day. And it's slow growth right now. It's gone over the last 3 years from 78 to 79 to now 80%, and it's projected to hit 81%. But again, basically almost everyone is checking their personal email at least once a day. And the majority of that 80% check it more than once a day. So everyone has email. Everyone's checking it at home and on their cell phone. Email is still growing. People check their email all the time. But this is the slide, this is the research that is the big takeaway, the big eye-opener. And that is 74% of people prefer email for commercial communication. That means emails from businesses like yours. So if you're relying on sending postcards or doing phone calls, you're not communicating with them in the way they prefer to be communicated. And why is that important? And that's because we've seen research, not necessarily in the automotive industry, but across all industries in general, that people are either 2 or 3 times more likely to respond to a communication if they receive it in the form that they prefer. So that basically means 3/4 of the people are 2 to 3 times more likely to respond if you send it to them in email, because that's what they prefer. Over 30% of online adults have also opted into commercial text, and that is growing very rapidly. I think it's nice to get a day of reminder. It's convenient. It's not too intrusive. So as long as you're not abusing that communication channel, that's an up-and-coming channel to take advantage of. And even people over 65 opt into text messages. So we get that objection a lot. Well, my customers don't want to receive email or text because they're older. Well, let's take a look at that by age. So it's one thing to say that 74% of people want to receive communications, but how does that break down? And what you'll see is that definitely through age 65, it's very consistent. It's only when you get 65 or older that it really not even significantly, noticeably drops at all. And even then, 2/3 of people 65 and over prefer to get email for corporate communications. And I'll just let that sink in for a second, but that's pretty eye-opening. So basically what this means is, regardless of age, people prefer to be contacted with email. If you do send them email, they're 2 to 3 times likely to respond. And this basically covers your entire customer base because we've seen the statistics on how many people are on email. The other thing, and I included this just for comparison's sake, how many people prefer to get phone calls and how many people prefer to get direct mail? Obviously, these can only add up to 100%, and not all of these do add up to 100%. So there's other issues or other modes of communication there. But look how unpopular phone calls are. So if your business is built around calling people or calling them with reminders to show up, these calls are probably not very well received. And some people do prefer direct mail, postcards, letters, etc. And if you know who those people are, then that can be a very effective channel. But overall, pay attention to this graph. I think it's fairly eye-opening. And then the last reason why you should use email, and this is research from the Direct Marketers Association. They do a lot of industry research in the best way to reach customers, both small and large. And basically, as of 2010, the ROI of email is $42.08. And what that means is for every dollar you invest in an email solution for communicating with your customers, you can expect to get $42.08 back. That's a fairly eye-opening number. And we see things, that are the flash in the pan or the big thing at the moment, like the Groupons, like Google was for a little bit. And don't get me wrong, these channels can still be effective. But at the end of the day, it's about the return on your investment. And email, as you can see here, has a double the ROI of search advertising. and it's better than any other direct marketing channel. And at the end of the day, the reason for that is fairly simple, and it comes back to what I was saying in retention versus acquisition, and that is it's cheaper and more effective to retain customers you already have than it is to find new ones. And when you start talking about search advertising or Groupon or any of the other acquisition channels, those are acquisition, and that is more expensive. So that's it for the latest research, but hopefully this shows you how important communications are to a healthy business, and more importantly, when you're trying to decide where to spend your precious dollars to make your business better, investing in communications, whether it's automated or manual, whether you're hiring someone to send emails out manually or send text reminders manually, it's amongst the best way to spend your money. And with that, let's get on to the meat of the presentation and what you should be doing. So we're going to talk a little bit about what your goals should be, how to communicate, how to monitor, and then what's the difference between communicating with someone and engaging with someone. Let's get right in there, but first we have a poll question.
All right, Chris. For our attendees, we have our second poll question here of the day. We want to know, what channels are you currently using to engage with your customers? You can answer email, SMS, which is text messaging, social media like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, your website, or none. Also at this time, I want to remind you that you can submit any questions that you have for Chris as we go through this presentation. We will be taking some questions at the end of the presentation today. So again, what channels are you currently using to engage customers? And let's see our results. All right, it's pretty evenly split with about just 31% using social media, and then 25% both using email and your own website. So Chris, looking at those numbers, that's some good information there. I'll turn things back over to you to get into some goals and other elements of the plan that people should put in place.
Yeah, that is interesting. Pretty even split. People not using SMS as a way to engage. That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's get this up here. Okay, so let's talk about what your goal is. A lot of people think that when they start communicating with people, that the goal is to get them to come in right away, try to sell them something, or otherwise do business right away. And I'm here to tell you that that's not your goal. Your goal is to stay top of mind. Not everyone is ready to buy right away. Not everyone needs work done on their car right away. What you're trying to do with regular communication is stay top of mind so that when they do decide that they are ready to buy, that they think of you. And there's lots of marketing research around brand recognition and staying top of mind and brand awareness, company awareness, et cetera, that the companies that do a better job of that are the ones that do better overall, because when someone finally makes a decision, that's where they decide to go. So if this is your goal, and it should be, is to stay top of mind, let's talk about the different channels that are available, the frequency, the content, and the tone. These are the main channels that are at your disposal, and they all have different things that they're better at, different ways that customers use them, and they're basically different. So let's talk about the differences here. So the first thing is frequency. Email is interesting. If you look at the way most people used email 5-10 years ago, one of the most popular things to do was have a newsletter or a monthly communication, what's happening at the shop, that sort of thing, and they would send it out once a month. What we have found is that once a month doesn't achieve your goal of staying top of mind. We found that once a week or thereabouts. We're big fans of testing. Figure out what works for you. But sending more frequently is more impactful and does a better job of staying top of mind. It gets less opt-outs. It is read more often if you do the right thing, and that's basically make the content valuable and short and digestible. So what I always tell people, if you're thinking about sending out a once-a-month email that's fairly long, break that down into 4 pieces. So send 4 shorter ones rather than 1 longer one. SMS is as needed, and this is more, it's not a regular marketing channel. It's more like for alerts, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Social, people underutilize social. It is very hard to wear a social channel out. And what I mean by that is if you email people too much, they'll report you as a spammer, they will opt out, they will otherwise disengage. And we don't see that in social very often. So what that means is anything you post in your, on your business profile page has a very short shelf life. And just think back or think to your own Facebook usage as an example, or Twitter usage if you guys use that. If someone posts something in the last couple hours, you might see it when you log in. But if you haven't logged in 3 days to Facebook and someone posted something 3 days ago, it got pushed to the bottom and you don't see it anymore. And so as a business, it's okay to post more because the chances of your target audience actually seeing any one individual post is actually fairly low. Other than maybe your younger audience that lives on Facebook and is there all the time. So your goal with social media, if it's to stay top of mind, you need to have them actually see those posts. And if you know the shelf life is only a couple of hours, 3 hours, et cetera, obviously posting more often can be beneficial. So we think the recommended frequency when posting to your social channels can be upwards of 3 to 7 times per day. And that might seem, somewhat extraordinary. And we're not saying you need to do it that often. What we're trying to give you here is the information you need to know that at what point will I get in trouble with my audience. And that's the point, roughly. And website, this could be updates to your website. It could be a blog. This is as needed. This basically is any time you have content that you need to get up there, the website is fine. You can update it as often as you need. It's good for search engine reasons to update your website frequently anyway. But basically, any time you have content that you want to get out there, your website's a good place to put it. So what content do you use for each channel? This is interesting because I think sometimes people misuse the channel. For email, reminders are great. Hey, you have you have a service appointment tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Please be here 15 minutes early, etc. Offers. Do you want to give away 1 tire if they buy 3 because you're trying to generate new business, maybe on a slow day, for example, or if you have news. You've decided to open the shop on Sundays or whatever. Email is appropriate. SMS is really only used for 2 things, but if you use them for these 2 things, it can be extremely powerful. The first one is reminders, and there's been a lot of studies that text message reminders, and SMS, by the way, is text messages. Short message is what the SMS stands for. It can reduce no-shows by a very large amount, 20-30% in some instances. The other interesting thing is flash offers, and that could be anyone that comes by in the next 3 hours gets $15 off an oil change or something like that. And this is pretty much it. You don't want to send any other marketing messages. This is a channel you can wear out very quickly, and people will not appreciate that. But when used appropriately, can be extremely powerful. Social, you can pretty much talk about everything, and it even doesn't have to be business related. I'm going to get to that on the next slide. But social is something where you can be a real person. People don't like to talk to companies on their social channels. They like to talk to people even though they're represented by that company. So what does that mean exactly? And what that means is your goal, again, is to stay top of mind. You could be posting, upwards of 3 to 7 times per day. It's going to be really hard to come up with business reasons to post that often. But what you can use social for in this case is to give your company personality and to show that there's real people behind the company. So if you coach a little league team in the community, if there is an auto show, classic auto show that's coming to town and you're going to be there, even though that has nothing to do with selling your business per se or trying to get people into the shop right then, it accomplishes the goal of keeping you top of mind, plus you're a valuable member of the community at that point. So we very much encourage people to do that. So when I talk to restaurants, I tell them to let people know about the local farmers market. If I'm talking to a floral shop, then just talking about the different color flowers mean different things to different people, or the fact that something's going on in town. Those types of things are fantastic posts on the social media channel. And on the website, generally speaking, with blogs maybe being the exception, you want to keep it professional. So you don't want to get too colloquial. You don't want to do too much. You can definitely include pictures of your shop and of the people, et cetera, but generally website is a place to keep it professional. And then the final column here is tone, and each channel has a different tone that's appropriate. With email, you want it to be professional, but it's like professional. You don't want it to be overly formal or sound like a press release. You want it to sound professional, but like it's from you. We've seen evidence that when a person when it comes from, signed by a person from Joe the shop owner, signed Joe the shop owner at the bottom, things do a little better. And so that's what we mean by light professional. Whereas, for example, on the website, you probably want to keep it a little bit more professional and keep some of the personal stuff off of there. With the SMS, it's not so much about tone as it is about brevity. Just keep it brief and short. People don't want to receive long text messages. I think it's 165 or 120 characters for a standard text. Most modern phones will accept much larger ones from that. Don't take advantage of that. If they have a reminder, you have an appointment in 1 hour at the auto shop. Here's the phone number if you need to make a change. Very brief. If it's a flash sale, we have openings over the next 3 hours. We're giving $15 off an oil change. Call if you're interested. Here's the phone number. And then the social, this is the one where people probably get in the most trouble. You want to be friendly and personal and not company-oriented. Think of it as you're posting as a person, or people in your company are posting as people, and not necessarily posting as the company. On social channels, people want to deal with real people, so keep that in mind. So I have one question here just that I wanted to take. I'll actually go back to this. Is it more effective to do flash ads or offers via SMS or by Twitter? I think you'll find that if you have the cell phone numbers in your database, that SMS is a lot more effective. The problem is that most people aren't collecting a lot of cell phone numbers, so your audience is smaller than maybe it would otherwise be, like for email or for mailing addresses. If you've done a great job of collecting cell phones, I think that if you simultaneously post a flash sale or flash ad on SMS and Twitter, that you'll find that the SMS channel will be a lot more effective. That being said, if you do SMS ads, by definition, you're only reaching people that are in your database. So if one of the goals perhaps is to increase the amount of people in your database, Twitter has that advantage because while only your customers may follow you, they may retweet it, and so you kind of have the potential for a network effect. But basically here, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't do both simultaneously. And if you had to pick, or if you had to pick one to develop, you're going to go for the one that maybe has the most potential to drive results. In the short term, that's probably SMS. And over the long term, if you do a really good job of generating followers on Twitter, that could be a good long-term solution if you can build the audience. Hopefully that answered that question for you guys. So two special things that I didn't include in that main graph. YouTube is very interesting, and it's interesting for one reason, well, for a couple of reasons, but one main reason. There's less noise, and by less noise, I mean you're competing with less people for attention on YouTube. Even though YouTube has massive viewership, there's fewer people doing business YouTube than, for example, doing stuff on Facebook. And especially for Google, because they own YouTube, when people do searches for any type of local business, if Google finds video matches, they show up at the top of the screen above the fold. So it can be very, very difficult, for example, to get your business onto the first page of Google, depending on how competitive it is in your area. But it's comparably easier to get a search result for YouTube to show up very high on the list, because while 50 auto shops, for example, within 15, 20 miles of you might be competing to get to the top of Google, if you do a YouTube video, you might be one of only one, 2 or 3 other people that are doing that, and so you have a very good chance of showing up fairly high. The other benefit here is you can show your expertise. It's a good way to kind of be thought as a thought leader or someone that helps the community and doesn't always need to be paid for it, which builds goodwill. Because at the end of the day, as auto shop owners, there's a lot of people that once it gets above anything over easy, they're going to hire you anyway. So, for example, you might want to do a video on how to change a car battery or how to change a tire, basic maintenance stuff that they would appreciate, that at the end of the day, is not going to cut into your business too much. Our recommendations here, if you're going to do this, is set up a YouTube channel so that there's one spot where you have all your videos, and that also helps with showing up higher in the rankings. And then the last thing here is it doesn't need to be expensive. You don't need to hire a film crew. You don't need to, buy expensive video cameras. We've seen great user-generated videos with things as easy, as an iPhone or an Android phone. And let's go on to the next one. So there's still a role for offline. So I showed that chart up there, and I don't want to make it seem like either I or Demandforce is advocating pure digital all the time. We do think that's the most effective channel, but there is a role for offline. And even though 3 times as many people prefer to be contacted via email, there are still people that want to be contacted in other ways. So there is a role for postcards, and there is a role for phone calls. My recommendation here, if at all possible, is simply to ask your customers what methods they prefer. Like, let them know, hey, we want to send you reminders to make sure that you get the maintenance on your car that you need, and occasionally we send offers, and we'd like to keep in touch with you, and how would you prefer? Would you prefer us to call you? Would you prefer phone postcards, or would you prefer email? I think that you'll find your customers respond at the same way our chart did, but you will get some people that say they want these other means. And what that will do is, for the people that prefer postcards, for example, you'll find that you're sending about 70% less or 80% less, this saves you on cost, and you've made them happy because you're communicating with them in the way that they want to be communicated. One of the suggestions that we have for collecting emails, or when we're asking these questions, which way do you want to be communicated with, is tell them that you're trying to be a paperless office. You find that you're more effective that way. You find that it's good for the environment. You want to be a green office, for example. And you'll get people, once they know that if I give you my email address, you'll stop sending me postcards. For people that care about, things like paper usage and mail, things like that, they are more willing to give you their email at that point when you tell them why that you're going to do it, and that they will see a corresponding drop in postcards, for example. And don't forget, this is especially true for email communications, social channels are fantastic, but they require a long-term investment to build up the audience. And most people understand and relate to email. Social is still an emerging channel, but why not use email to drive adoption of social usage? So on your emails, you should have a link to your Facebook page, a link to follow you on Twitter, a link to your YouTube channel, et cetera. That one in the red P is Pinterest. That's kind of a new thing that's kind of taken off. So whatever channels that you use, link to them in your email communications so that you're generating basically users across multiple channels, so that if you send them an email, send them a text, send them a tweet, post on Facebook, maybe they won't see all of them, but they'll at least see one of them. And so this is a great way to build up your audience. Monitoring. And Shannon, we're back with a poll question.
All right. Well, as we head into the last part and we talk a little bit about monitoring what you do, we want to know what you currently do. So if you could answer, what do you monitor on the emails that you send to customers? Do you monitor open rates, spam markers, returned emails, or nothing? Just select one that you monitor. You might monitor more than one. Just choose the one that you monitor the most in that case and click Submit Answer. I also encourage you that as we head towards the end of our presentation today, if you have any questions about anything that Chris has covered, please submit them. We will have plenty of time at the end here to get through those questions. Again, to look at what do you monitor on the emails, and we'll see what you monitor. We'll see what your results are. Looks like the majority of people today say they don't monitor anything. And then the second two are pretty evenly split between returned emails and open rates. So, Chris, if you want to talk about that a little bit as we head into this monitoring section, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And this response is about what I expected. These are the things that we feel people should be monitoring. The first one is opt-out rates, and basically this means that they have chosen not to receive emails from you anymore. And we've already seen how powerful email is and how most people prefer it, and the return on investment is really high. So when someone opts out, this means that basically you've worn out your welcome to their email inbox. One of the main things that causes opt-out rates is content that they perceive to be not valuable. So you're sending them things that they just don't want. And if your opt-out rates are really high, it's an invitation to rethink the type of content that you're sending out. Giving you an example of what an opt-out rate should be, if on any given mailing you've received 1% opt-outs, that's very high. I mean, you want this in the low decimal points. At the same time, don't ever expect that you're going to hit zero. People opt out, all the time for different reasons. You can't take it personally, but you do want to monitor the rate, and you absolutely want it to be, 0.1, 0.2% at most. Spam complaints are the same thing, and unfortunately, people they don't trust the opt-out button anymore sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, and so they just hit the "this is spam" button, and that's that's essentially going nuclear, because not only are they not receiving your emails anymore, it's a signal to the email service provider or the internet service provider that maybe you're not a reputable email sender, and this can affect your ability to send to everybody. So you want to monitor spam complaints. This can be hard, but basically for free, you can contact the biggest ISPs, the Gmails, Yahoos, Hotmails, et cetera. You don't have to go to a bunch. And you can sign up and say, please let me know every time someone reports me as sending spam. It's not a great way of monitoring it. There are some services out there that can be somewhat expensive. So for a small business, we don't normally recommend that. But you can do it for free just by going to the big internet service providers like Google or Yahoo and asking them to notify you when you get a spam complaint. Open rates are a good way of measuring whether your subject lines are effective. Most people, the vast majority of people, decide whether to open an email based purely on the subject line. The other factor is just your reputation as an email sender. So if they see an email from Joe's Auto Shop, for example, based on all the emails you sent previously, they already have an expectation this will be a good email or a bad email, so that alone could have them decide whether to open or not. But the other thing is the actual subject line. So if your open rates aren't what you want them to be, try different subject lines. And then the last thing here is click-through rates. Click-through rates are a measure of how good your content is. I know with you guys, sometimes you might put a phone number and you're trying to generate phone calls, not necessarily response to emails, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But generally in marketing, when we look at click-through rates, that's an endorsement or a comment on the quality of the content inside the email. Other things, email is not the only thing to monitor. You want to monitor what people say about you on the internet in general, whether it's a review, whether it's blogging, whether it's a tweet, whether it's on a social channel, and some good tools for this. And there's lots of free tools are out there. My two favorite are Google Alerts and Hootsuite. So Google Alerts, you'll see a little screenshot on the bottom. You just enter the search query. For example, you could put Joe's Auto Shop to stay with the same example. Select from these other drop-down menus, and like how often you want it to look, once a week, once a day, whatever. And Google will essentially do this query constantly, and anytime it finds something new, it will send you an email. So it's a great way to monitor what people say about you at large. The social channels are a little bit harder because Google's not searching those, and for that we recommend Hootsuite. So then you can search Twitter, you can look at Facebook, et cetera. But there's lots of tools out there, and many of these are free, and many of the really good tools are free. So don't feel like you have to pay for something for a monitoring solution, just because. There's lots of great free tools out there. And then the best way to actually monitor what people are saying about you oftentimes is to claim your listing. And so whether you sign up for Yelp or not, Yelp probably has a page on your shop where people come and review you. You have the ability to claim that listing and basically say, hey, Yelp, I'm the business owner. And if you haven't done that, you should. And all the other review sites, or most of the other review sites, follow this model. So you can go to Google+, you can go to Yahoo Local, Bing Local, City Search, these types of sites, and you can claim your listing. And then anytime someone posts something about you on that page, you'll be notified. It's a way to be aware of the conversations that are happening, all just by claiming your page. And we strongly recommend that you do that. And then the last thing here is engage, and especially in the social channels, but any channel where someone responds to you, the days of broadcasting your message are over. This isn't, the 1950s where you just do a television ad and you just let people know how it is. We're in the age of two-way communication, and this means that if you're doing an effective job of monitoring and you see something that's said about you or a question that's asked or something that's perhaps wrong, you need to engage that person, and more importantly, you want to engage all the other people that are watching the conversation, because conversations in this forum aren't private anymore. Yes, one person might have a complaint, but your response is seen by hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are also monitoring that channel. Our recommendation is to have one person in charge. And when it comes to like Facebook and Twitter, if you have one person, a young person that is the bubbly, happy personality, they're the ones that come in at 7 in the morning and don't need coffee to be nice to people, that's a great person to put in charge of your social media. And then encourage them and say, hey, for a half hour every day or when you come in the morning, we want you to look at all these tools that we're using to monitor or find out anything anyone has said about us, and we want you to respond like, hey, we're sorry about your experience, please come in, or we're glad you had a great experience, and thank you for spreading the word. The important thing here is to be real and authentic, genuine, and don't come across as defensive or too corporate or as a company and not a person. And so the message here is that the main thing is it's a two-way channel now. It's not one way, and you need to participate in that. So the three keys with communication here is be proactive, ask for what you want, and prioritize. So being proactive means setting up a communication strategy, like I'm going to email once a week, or I'm going to put someone in charge of the social channel, and we are going to proactively post to there at least twice a day. You want to lead in these channels. You don't want to react and only be seen as someone that's on these channels when something bad happens. Be out there first, kind of own your presence online, and you'll be good. Ask for what you want. There's statistics out there, for example, that say if you put the word click here on a link, they're more likely to actually click on the link than if you just have a link without the words click here. Well, that works in the offline world too. So when someone's in your shop and if you want their email and their cell phone because you know how important it is, ask for it. Don't just put a little tabletop display that says, hey, we'd love to have your email. Train every person that interacts with your customers to ask for their email address, ask for their cell phone, ask for them to follow you on Facebook and Twitter. Do it in a friendly way. Don't be overbearing. But if you don't ask, they won't do it. And along with asking is telling them why it's important. Hey, help us go paperless. We don't want to, cut down trees to send postcards, et cetera. If you tell them why and you ask them for it, most people will do it, and you will find that you have an easier time of marketing to your customer base. And the last thing here is prioritize, and that's kind of the original message that I started with, and it goes back to the PEMDAS, parentheses, multiplication, subtraction thing. Do things in the order that they make sense. Don't just start doing paid advertising if you don't have an email plan in place or if you don't have social media in place. Those things are free. They just require sweat equity, and they pay off in an incredible ROI. So do those things first. You can't do everything simultaneously. So we have 10 minutes left, and I am just going to zoom through these last couple of slides because this isn't really a salesy webinar. So I just want to tell you a couple things about Demandforce and why we think we have a really great solution for you guys. So the first one is automation. We automatically send reminders. We automatically send thank you emails. We automatically request surveys and reviews. Surveys are things like you can ask, or we ask, how was your wait time? Was the front office or were my employees professional and courteous, et cetera? These are good things because you can monitor over time to see whether they're improving. And we automate the appointment request. Not everyone wants to make an appointment when your office is open. So we do a lot of things that we talked about today in a very automated way, maintenance reminders, et cetera. We find people see a lot of value in that. We also offer incredible segmentation tools. So instead of sending an email to every single person in your database offering something, wouldn't it be great, for example, if you could very easily say, I only want to send this email to people that have been in my shop in the last 6 months spent at least $100 and have a Toyota that's between 2001 and 2004, because maybe there's something going on and you want to offer them something to get in the shop. We make that very easy. You see on the screen there's sliders, there's drop-down menus, etc. That exact email I described you can set up in under 5 minutes. And so that can be very, very powerful. And what we find is when people send segmented emails, the results are a lot better, like a lot better, 2, 3, 4 times as better as just sending out a generic offer to everyone. We also have pre-done campaigns. So a lot of the times people struggle with what kind of content they want to send. Well, we have informational emails that you can, pick up and send out easily, or things like, please rate us on Yelp. You don't have to write that email. We have it written. You just have to decide who you want to send it to, and we mail it out for you. So that's very nice. And then the last thing that I'll talk about is a hot list. These are people that can request, hey, I know you're busy for the next 7 days, but if you had a cancellation, I'd like to be notified. Then you keep track of this in your hot list, and then when you do have that opening, you just automatically send an email out to the people that have requested it, and it's a great way to backfill last-minute cancellations and keep your base filled. And then the last thing here is, we love Motorage. We did another webinar a couple of months ago, and it was fantastic in our opinion. Hopefully Motorage seems to think the same thing. And we wanted to offer you guys a free month of service if you mention this webcast. So if you're interested, you can just come to demandforce.com, request to see a demo, and if you tell the salesperson that gives you the demo about the webcast, they will give you a free month off. And this is good until January 5th. So you have a month to take advantage of that. And with that brings me to the Q&A section. So I do see some questions in here, and I think I'll just start answering some of them. So the first one is, if my shop is currently not doing any sort of marketing, how do you recommend getting started? That's a great question. So, I've mentioned asking for email addresses and cell phones. I would say that's probably the very first thing that you can do. It makes it a lot easier to market if you have an audience to market to. And because email and SMS is so cost effective, this is what you want to start with first. So that would be my first thing. The second thing is I would come up with my communication strategy so that when I have the email and the cell phone that I have something to mail out or I have an idea. And then the third thing is I would probably start developing a social channel. Facebook is great for building community. Twitter is great for broadcasting. So if you think that you want to, for example, get more new customers in, and you think that there's a lot of people using Twitter can be, in your neighborhood, Twitter can be a great example. If you want to build a relationship with the customers you already have and get them to bring their friends in, then we think Facebook is the right channel to go. And once you've done that and you feel really comfortable with it, then you can start doing some acquisition stuff and maybe doing some paid search on Google, or maybe doing Groupon. I'm personally not a huge fan of Groupon. You have to discount way too much. You only make money if those people turn into repeat customers usually. But once you have the basics done, then you can start going into at least trialing some of these acquisition channels. But start with the free stuff first. And email and text and Facebook and Twitter are all free. It's sweat equity. It's the time you put into it. And we've seen a lot of success with that. And then maybe consider YouTube. It might be a great channel for you. How do you stand out with your communication among all the trash that we receive? And, yeah, that's probably one of the biggest frustrations. Yes, 94% of online adults use email, but every single one of them is probably sick of, half the emails that they get. Ultimately, what you have to do is you have to build up a reputation with that person as being someone that sends valuable content, that sends email that they want to get. As an example, there's a website called Daily Candy. It's about fashion and shoes and clothing boutiques, etc. And my wife signs up for this, and they send an email every single day, and she loves it so much that if there's ever a technical difficulty and she doesn't get her email, not only would she read it if she got it, she's upset when it doesn't arrive. And it's because, apparently, in her mind, they provide great content. Are you sending them email that it's just constantly come in and get 20% off? Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to save money, but they kind of get worn out on that. So if you're more, let's say you're restoring a car in your shop and sending out updates on that, or talking about the local auto show, or talking about the auto industry at large, you can be seen as someone that provides really great content that people want to read. So again, back to that frequency of email and standing out, it's probably hard nowadays to have any single email stand out, but you as a sender can stand out, and that's really what you're trying to do. And it comes down to the content, the frequency, the tone, et cetera. And that's, again, why we really feel like if you can provide great content, if you can think of enough things to actually send, sending once a week is great. And I think you'll find, again, if you have the content to send, that your customers will like it. This one's more of a comment, but that's someone said that's fine if you have the emails to target your audience, but without those emails, you cannot contact potential clients the way you can with direct mail. Absolutely. And at Demandforce, we absolutely believe that, which is why we do offer postcards. We don't necessarily think that it's a one-size-fits-all. There is absolutely a role for direct mail. It's just knowing that role and maybe not overstepping the bounds of that role. Our opinion is that you should concentrate on email and supplement with direct mail and not the other way around, mainly because it's cost effective. Let me see what the next question here. There's a question, can't you help us get emails if we don't have any already, and is there a fee? Yes, we do have a product called Email Finder, which basically it looks at the name in your database and the mailing address and the phone numbers, and it goes out to these third-party databases, and it tries to find the email for that person. And there is a fee, and it's 99 cents, one-time fee. Once we find the email, we put it in your database in your management system for you, and you get to use it forever. It's yours. You own it. So, yes, we do offer that service. Let's see. Okay, last question. It looks like we're running out of time. And let's see. I'll take this one just because it's social media. My Facebook posts are read but hardly commented on. How do I get my customers to be active on Yelp and Facebook, et cetera? One of the best ways we found is to actually ask questions. Say, hey, what do you think about this topic? Or I know, for example, maybe the new Motor Trend Car of the Year is out. Hey, what do you guys think of that car? Posting a picture, doing a caption contest, having contests. Hey, submit the best picture of you in your car doing the summer travel. Anything like that that specifically asks them to be engaged, generally speaking, will get more engaged. And the more fun you make the question, the more chance, the bigger chance that it will go viral. And for something to get a lot of answers, that's kind of what you need. So if you have 100 or 200 people on Facebook, if you do something that gets them to like it or share it with their friends, then you could actually get 500 responses instead of 200. And that comes down to how popular the question is. So instead of, posting a picture that says, of a left bumper bracket on a 1972 Volvo, why don't you do something that says, hey, everyone, post a picture of your favorite classic car. Something like that will probably get a lot more responses. And with that, I think I'll bring Tschanen back on. And I do know there's lots more questions here, and we will try and get to these and maybe send you personal email responses. But thank you so much for having me.
Great. Well, thanks, Chris, for answering all the questions and sharing all that information. And we will try to get back to everybody on the questions that we didn't have time to answer here today during the webinar. But I would like to thank all of the attendees for spending some time with us today. Hopefully you've all learned some new ways to reach your customers in an affordable or even free way. If you'd like to see any part of the presentation again or share it with someone else, archives will be available at motorage.com/demandforce. You'll also get a follow-up email letting you know when those archives are available. Thanks to Chris Brubaker with Demandforce for discussing online communication approaches and growing your bottom line today. And we hope that you enjoyed the webinar. And with that, we'll you all get back to your shops. Thanks for joining us, and have a productive rest of your day.